By the time I got back to the main house, almost everybody had gotten their meal and were sitting down to eat. The only people remaining were Megan, Nathan's little, and the woman who had arrived earlier that same day. Seeing the two women, I stopped and tilted my head as I studied them. They both looked so much alike that they could have been siblings, and I had to take a second to compare the two of them. Both had the same strawberry blonde hair and blue eyes, and they were both approximately the same height. The closer I looked at the two, the more I realized they were likely twins rather than just siblings. Just as both women turned around, I realized I was in their way much too late. They both ran right into me, spilling the contents of their plates down the front of my messy uniform. Both women took a step back, completely startled by the situation, and I was relieved when I realized that the food had cooled down enough so that it didn't burn me as it spilled down the front of me. Taking a step back myself, I looked at the two of them. "I am so sorry," I apologized as I brushed the main mess off of my jeans. Immediately, Nathan came marching into the room and stopped to look at me. "What on earth happened?" he asked as he stared me down. Seeing the look of anger on his face, I remembered how territorial he was of Megan and knew that I had to defuse the situation before he got the wrong idea. "It was my fault," I informed him. "I had just come into the main house for dinner and didn't realize that they were almost done. I just went to reach for a plate and found out too late that I was in their way." At first, Nathan didn't seem convinced as he turned to look at Megan. "Did he hurt you?" he asked, acting as though she was the one who was wearing all the food, not me. Immediately, Megan shook her head and gave me an apologetic smile. "Of course not," she replied casually before looking at the woman next to her. "We should have been looking where we were going, shouldn't we have?" The woman next to her nodded in agreement as she smiled up at Nathan. "I shouldn't have been distracting Megan in the first place," she told him, but Nathan shook his head as he looked at her. "I don't blame either of you," he said before turning his attention back to me. "You should have been paying more attention to where you were going and what was going on." Before I could say anything, Chase came out of the living room and looked at the four of us. "Seems as though you guys made a bit of a mess," he commented casually as he looked over at Nathan. "Take it easy on him, will you? Accidents happen. As far as I can tell, no harm's been done." Nathan started to protest, but Chase, who clearly wasn't done with the conversation, turned to look at the woman beside Megan. "Am I right, Amanda?" The woman, Amanda, smiled politely as she nodded in agreement. "That's right," she reassured him. "It was just an accident." Turning to look at me, she continued, "I'm so sorry for everything." Seeing the polite smile on her face, I couldn't help but smile in return. "It's all right," I reassured her. "No harm done." Seeing our polite exchange, Chase turned back to Nathan. "Leave Scott alone," he ordered. "We have work we need to get done anyways." With that, he took off back towards the living room, and Nathan followed. As soon as we were alone, Megan looked back at me. "Sorry about that, Scott," she told me as she risked a glance back at the table. Before I even had a chance to answer, she tugged at Amanda's arm. "Let's get our plates and go eat. I'm starving." Immediately, the two went back to work, and I stood by the back door, watching the two of them as they went back to fixing their plates. When they were finally done, I made my way over to the table just as Adam entered the kitchen. Seeing the mess in my clothing, he frowned in confusion. Are you okay?" he asked, his voice full of concern. "What happened?" Even though I heard his voice, my attention was not on him. Instead, it was on the woman they had called Amanda.